Hey, look at that. We have awarded the most valuable player. And I'm sure this year's vote will have absolutely no controversy.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And guess what, folks? We are now the number one sports podcasting network. Ta-da! Thanks so much for helping us get there and for listening to the show. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of us is right here on the YouTube page. If you put a comment in there, make sure you use that hashtag EverydaySully. It helps us find your comments and put them in there, and everybody's happy. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5. If your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Now, I'm going to go through the trivia question before we jump into the completely straightforward and not controversial at all MVP vote. The trivia question for the other day was, today is the birthday of the first Blue Jays pitcher whoever won the Cy Young Award. Name him. And Das Wunderkind gave me the answer that should be right. Trivia question. I'm going to go with the pitcher you brought up, Dave Stieb. Yep, Dave Stieb should have won at least one Cy Young Award in his wonderful time with the Toronto Blue Jays. He did a little bit of everything, and I would argue he was one of the absolute best pitchers in the American League throughout the 1980s. And if you like WAR, guess what? He led the league in WAR for pitchers 3 straight years, consistently through 200 some odd innings, got big wins, had great stats across the board, and he is tied with me in Cy Young wins. Absolutely insane. That the guy, like 82, he was, 82, 19 complete games, 288 and a third innings. Um, 3.25 earned run average, 5 shutouts, had the highest WAR of any pitcher that year. He finished fourth. In his best, arguably, his best overall season was 1984, where he pitched 267 innings, great stats across the board, a 2.83 ERA. He finished seventh in the Cy Young vote. Willie Hernandez won the Cy Young Award that year as the relief pitcher for the Tigers. Ahead of him were Dan Quisenberry, Burt Blyleven, Mike Boddicker, Dan Petrie, Frankie Viola. Dave Stieb was seventh that year. He had the best year of any pitcher in the American League that year, arguably. Maybe Boddicker did as well. Boddicker had a very good year, but it was between him and Dave Stieb, and they were both afterthoughts as Willie Hernandez and Dan Quisenberry fought it out. So who was? Well, Argonaut comedy, not astronaut comedy, Argonaut comedy. Sorry, they're Argonaut. Funny comedian based out of Sacramento says Pat Henkin, which is correct. Pat Henkin is the correct answer. In 1996, a lot of people thought it should have been Andy Pettitte, but it went to Pat Henkin. All right, folks, shall we talk about it? Should we talk about it? The fact of the matter is, it is time to talk about it. We'll talk about the controversial one right out of the gate. And I think it's going to probably be a top of a conversation for a few days. And alas, we came so close to having the first tie in the AL MVP ever, and the first tie since 1979 when Keith Hernandez and Willie Stargell tied. Aaron Judge won the American League Most Valuable Player. Cal Raleigh came really close. Aaron Judge, by the way, they got all the first and second place vote. There wasn't one jerk reporter who said, you know what? I think I'm gonna go put I don't know, Jared Duran. I'm gonna give him a first place vote. No one did something like that. There was a smattering of third place votes around, but the Judge got 17 first place votes. Cal Raleigh got 13 first place votes, and those were flipped into second place votes. Judge got 13 second place votes. Cal Raleigh got 17 second place votes, which means if two writers who voted for Judge had voted for Raleigh, we would have the tie. Now, I've been saying this is a coin toss. I absolutely believe this is a coin toss. I leaned Judge, and not because I'm a diehard Yankee fan. I'm a classic Yankee hater, and the Mariners are one of my favorite teams in all of baseball and always have been. So it has nothing to do with my East Coast bias. Even though I was born and raised in the East Coast, I live in Pasadena, California. Okay? The reason why I lean Judge is not because of the war. I think I use war the same way I use Wikipedia. It's a good place to start, but shouldn't be your lone source. No one scored more runs than Aaron Judge. Nobody walked more than Aaron Judge. He had 53 home runs. No one had a higher batting average than Aaron Judge. No one had a higher on base percentage than Aaron Judge. No one had a better slugging percentage by Aaron Judge. You can probably figure out that he had the highest OPS. He had the highest OPS plus. He had the highest ROBA. He has the highest RBAT plus. I don't know what those mean, but they're dark and italicized on his baseballreference.com page. No one had more total bases than him. Now, and I also know that you remove the Jenga piece that is Aaron Judge from that lineup, and the Yankees fall apart. The first half of the season he had was superhuman. Was absolutely a superhuman. I'm going to go look at his splits for 2025. And remember what he was doing the first half of the season. He slashed 355, an on base of 462, and a slugging of 733. Now, his slump in the second half was a second half where he had an OPS of 1.051. That's his slump. 18 home runs in 56 games. That's his slump. He had June was okay. Like it's 2 months where he had downturns were June and August. And in both of those months, he had a 967 OPS in June and a 923 OPS in August. Those are the months that people look at. Ooh, what's the matter with Judge? He carried the Yankees offense. They desperately needed him throughout the year. He had a remarkable, remarkable year. And anyone who's going to have a giant issue with him winning, I think has to take a good look in the mirror and say, hey, it's not like there have been years where it's been like a complete forehead slap. Like when Mo Vaughn won the year that Albert Bell clearly was the MVP. And I love Mo Vaughn. But who are we kidding? The MVP was Albert Bell. So Judge has obviously a terrific case to win the MVP. But do you know what? The deal is, so did Cal Raleigh. And the fact of the matter is, this is a year we had two MVPs, and I kind of sort of don't understand in one way the controversy, because the controversy would be there was no word, there was no question. And in this case, Raleigh was amazing and Judge was amazing. And if it's a coin toss, in my opinion, you can't get mad if it landed on heads instead of tails. But I'm going to give Cal Raleigh his due. All right. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you ever miss the start of the game and you want to ride your hot hand, do you know what? FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay. That's French for speak for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to fanduel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. All right, let's give Cal Raleigh his due, shall we? I mean, here are the two biggest arguments for Cal Raleigh. Beyond the fact, I mean, the biggest argument for Judge is his, he led the league across the board and was the biggest cog in the wheel of the team that wound up having the best record in the American League, or tied with the best record. Okay. So what's the case for Cal Raleigh? Well, the fact that he had 60 home runs and led the league in runs batted in, and is a dynamic, outstanding defensive catcher. And the fact that he's giving all this great offense in the position of the catcher, I mean, the value that he brings to the table is astounding. By the way, I'm going to go on the record. I talked about how I use WAR kind of the way I use Wikipedia. I have no clue how WAR is calculated. None. Zero. Which is one reason why I take it with a tiny bit of grain of salt, except the fact that a lot of times it lines up with, who the best players are. I'm going to bring up an example later in the show of why I may never understand how WAR works. But I digress. And the fact that he led the Seattle Mariners to the division title, especially when they were, we forget how they were fighting tooth and nail with the Houston Astros for a big chunk of the year. And they finally put the aft thrusters on and put the Astros in the dust. Yeah, a lot of that was because of Cal Raleigh and doing it as a catcher and leading the team and putting this all together. And of course, there's also a little bit of the Judge fatigue. This is Judge's third MVP. And maybe sometimes it's good to spread the wealth around. I was kind of hoping for a tie because I know the people who support Cal Raleigh don't even acknowledge Aaron Judge. Like, what are we talking about here? And the people who support Judge, it's a vice versa. If you're upset by this result, first of all, I don't know what to tell you, but that's in some ways that's good for baseball because it gets people talking about it. I think we had two MVP candidates, and I kind of wished it was a tie because then everyone would be mad. Notice I didn't say everyone would be happy. Everyone would be mad by it. Cal Raleigh is a remarkable talent. He is a Gold Glove winner. He is a Silver Slugger, and he is going to continue to be a star with the Seattle Mariners. And oh, how close he came to leading the Mariners. They were 5 outs away from their first ever trip to the World Series. And do you know what? You got to look at this Mariners team and think that they have a golden opportunity to finally get into that World Series next year, with Cal Raleigh being the one pulling the strings. I think we have two terrific MVP candidates. And quite frankly, I can't see how anyone could have a problem with either one, but I get it. But it's not because of a Northeast bias. That's not how the MVP votes work. It's not a bunch of New York writers and one lonely writer from Seattle. It's spread out evenly from the different markets. So no, it's not because, it's because he's from New York. I mean, of course he's going to win all of them. That's not true. Lots of Texas Rangers and Minnesota Twins have won MVPs, and a lot of big famous Yankees have not. How many MVPs do you think Derek Jeter won? St. Derek Jeter, the one who everyone says, he is blessed upon us. He never won the MVP. Once he was the runner-up in 2006. That was probably his best chance to win an MVP. And you know who he lost to? He lost to Justin Morneau. Justin Morneau wasn't even the best to win that year. And Derek Jeter lost to him that year. The one year he led the league in WAR, again, I'm not sure what to do with that stat, was 1999. Pudge Rodriguez won the MVP that year. I would argue Pedro Martinez should have, but I'm a little biased there because Pedro Martinez is my favorite player of all time. Yeah, Jeter was, you know, twice, let's see, 1, 2, 3 times made the top 3 in the MVP vote. And you take a look at all those great Yankees they had there: Bernie Williams, Tino Martinez, Jorge Posada. No, none of them sniffed an MVP. And Mariano Rivera never won a Cy Young Award. Andy Pettitte didn't win the Cy Young Award. The one Cy Young Award winner they did have in that stretch was Clemens. The one MVP they had in that stretch was A-Rod, where neither one turned out to be beloved Yankees. And a lot of Mets have never won either. How many Mets have won the MVP? You never saw David Wright winning. You never saw Darryl Strawberry. You don't see it. It's not a situation where it's a Northeast bias that gave it to Aaron Judge. It's a bias of looking at who had the best stats. Sorry, that's what happened. That's what it was about. And you know what? He may win it again because right now he's in that spot that Mike Trout was a few years ago, where he was the presumptive MVP. So you can't put it on Northeast bias, and it's just, you know what? You had 2 great MVP candidates, and this is the way it turned out. I don't see how anyone could have any question about Shohei Ohtani winning. I mean, he won it unanimously again. And this is now MVP number 4. 4 times out of the last 5 years, he won the MVP. The one time he did it in that stretch, he was the runner-up. And that was the year he finished 4th in the Cy Young vote. How did he not win the MVP when he put up huge numbers as a hitter and was in the Cy Young vote as well? Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs. But do you know what? Aaron Judge didn't win it unanimously. He had 62 home runs, and Shohei Ohtani got 2 first-place votes. Maybe that's why Ohtani moved over to the National League. But as it is, right now, Ohtani is the MVP until proven otherwise, because he'll put up great stats. And this year he started 14 games and had a good ERA of 2.87. If you can put those up and still pitch, what are we even talking about here? So there is one thing that I'll never understand about WAR, and maybe some of you will educate me, or maybe some of you won't. But Shohei Ohtani, despite putting up those great numbers and pitching, did not lead the league in WAR, and I find that strange. When you take a look at the National League National League MVP vote, Ohtani led it with 420, all the first place votes, and Kyle Schwarber finished second with 260 points with 23 of the second place votes. Then Juan Soto, beloved Met Juan Soto. Met fans seem to hate that guy, and yet he finished in 3rd place. I find the 4th place finish interesting. Geraldo Perdomo of the Arizona Diamondbacks finished 4th. By the way, Corbin Carroll finished, finished 7th. So you have a couple of Diamondbacks got some votes, and Ketel Marte actually got a 9th place vote along the way. But Geraldo Perdomo led the National League in WAR, at least in the version they use at baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. He has a WAR of 7, and he finished 4th in the MVP vote. So he had the highest wins above replacement, and he didn't crack the top 3. Now, I don't understand, and maybe someone will explain this to me. I mean, he played in 161 games, so obviously he played every day, so maybe that's part of his value. He played shortstop. which is a very important position. One, if you get any offense at a shortstop, that's terrific. He got a bunch of hits, 173 hits. He hit 20 home runs. If you still like RBI, which I guess people who like WAR don't care about RBI, but he did get 100. And he did steal 27 bases. If you like batting average, he batted 290. I prefer on base percentage. His OPS was 851, which is very, very good. You go down the line, and I see someone who is very, very good, maybe even excellent. And he's also young. He's a great, he's 26 years old and a terrific building block moving forward for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was a big part of the team that wound up winning the National League pennant a few years ago. But I see those numbers and I cannot figure out how that was the best wins above replacement of any player in the National League. I'm not discounting WAR. I'm not. I'm not saying they're wrong. When I look at something like that, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I think he's an all-star. I think he should have gotten some MVP votes. But the highest wins above replacement is not the guy with hitting home runs whenever he wants and getting on the mound and pitching, but it's this guy who finished fourth in the MVP vote. Again, not saying he's bad. Again, not saying WAR is stupid, as Culture Club sang. I'm just saying I'll never understand how it's calculated, which is why I have to use it just as a starting off point and then making my own opinions based on that instead of, well, looking at it and saying this is this is the end all be all. Now, one thing I do want to do is I want to go back for just a second here. I'm going to go to my Sully Baseball, the Sully Baseball show, okay, and the blog I have here, and I had Who Owns Baseball, which was the tally that I do at the end of the throughout the year to figure out who had the highest WAB. I give the bet the highest WAB for whomever has the best, basically the MVP of each day. And to the surprise of hopefully nobody, the two players who had the highest Who Owns Baseball for the year were, let's look at them. Aaron Judge had the highest WAB total with 10.5. Cal Raleigh was tied for second with 8, along with Byron Buxton. The highest total of any National League batter was Shohei Ohtani with 9.5. The highest total for any American League pitcher was Garrett Crochet, who was half a point ahead of Tarek Skubal at 10. And the National League pitcher with the highest WAB was Paul Skeens, ahead of Zach Wheeler and Nick Pivetta. And the player with the highest all-around, the all-round total was indeed Shohei Ohtani, based on having points as both a pitcher and as a hitter. So my silly little thing where I have the best player of each day on a winning team and a losing team in the American League and the National League, the best hitter on a winning losing team in the National League, best pitcher for a winning losing team in the American League, turned out to be almost identical to the MVP and the Cy Young vote, which is why I'm going to do it again. I don't know how WAR is calculated. I know how WAB is. It's me saying who had the best day, boom. And it adds up, and it's all right. Well, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things next week. I'm going to be taking the weekend off. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things, including a lot of your responses to my talking about the Cleveland pitching scandal. And it's the more we're learning about it, the weirder it is and the more disturbing it is. We'll be answering some of your questions about that. No doubt you all have opinions on the AL MVP vote. I hope none of you have a problem with the NL MVP vote, unless you're a really big fan of Geraldo Perdomo. And by the way, I got to say it once, I got to say it again. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. And thanks so much for making us Locked On, the #1 sports podcasting network. And it's going to bring us to the trivia question. Born on this day was the first pitcher to win a postseason MVP award without getting a decision or save in the series. Name him. This pitcher won a postseason MVP award, the first one to do this. Did not get a win, did not get a loss, and did not get a save, but still won the MVP of that series. Name them. That is the trivia question for today. Talking about a razor thin American League MVP vote that is, well, you know what? Kind of sort of accurate. And the National League, which was a landslide, just don't tell War that. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.